before I started making money doing anything creatively, I failed. I failed multiple times. I failed at some businesses that I wanted to start. I failed at some shit that I wanted to do. Now I work a creative job full time. I think I had like 6, 7, I can't even remember, several failed businesses at this point. A lot of them I really just gave up, but a couple of them were like actual legitimate public failures. The first business I started when I was 16 with my boy James. We ran a booking company for hardcore bands. We were in a hardcore band and we wanted to play alongside other hardcore bands, so we'd want to book them. The business model basically was we'd see them, they had a date in like Texas. We'd see that they have a date in Denver. We would see that they had a spot open basically in between, like a date. They'd have a date open in between those two dates. And so I'd hit them up on MySpace. We ran the company on MySpace. And I'd just be like, yo, do you want to come out, play our little venue and pull up? And I had some good luck. Like I booked some big bands and it was fucking dope. For those of you out there that know hardcore, I booked like Recon and Thick as Blood and Chelsea Grin and Gravemaker and Folsom and a bunch of dope ass bands. We had a good run. There are basically some political reasons why we didn't end up kind of pushing that a little further. Eventually people started to move away and the bands that we were in just kind of like started to fizzle out and shit. And so I learned a lot because we would do all of our own promoting. We would do all of our own marketing. We'd do everything through MySpace. We would print physical like handbills, flyers. We would post them up all over town. We'd hand them out directly to people. And it taught me about the importance of marketing. And back then it was all guerrilla. We didn't have social media and shit to like really promote hard online. So we had to do everything physically. And we would have good turnouts. We would actually make a little bit of money. You know, like the band would have their guarantee. We would pay the band, pay the other openers, you know, gas money and shit. They just wanted to come out and play alongside these dope bands. That was like my first legitimate business. And then meanwhile, my parents were running a restaurant and I was the kitchen manager of this restaurant. And that restaurant ended up going under. I take part in its failure because I was the kitchen manager. Now I was a 19-year-old kitchen manager and I was pretty underqualified to do so. I might have had more of an impact if I understood food costing and if I just understood management better. I might have been able to play a bigger role in its success. There were a lot of factors as to why, but a family failure to me is a failure for me as well, in my eyes. But during that period, during that restaurant period, my parents recruited me into an MLM. Those of you that don't know what an MLM is, you might hear it more commonly called a pyramid scheme. Basically, those people will go and recruit other people, and then those people are supposed to recruit other people, and then it has this big old pyramid. Yeah, didn't work out. It's just, you gotta like sell your friends shit, and then once you get them in your little pyramid or whatever, and once you start like recruiting people and then they don't become successful, then their lack of success is your fault, and then it just sucks to try to sell your friends shit. And it's just a weird business model. It makes you feel weird. It's weird. It's a little culty. It's got this cult kind of vibe, you know, and it was odd. It was an odd thing, but I did learn a lot about sales. I did read a lot of books, a lot of good self-improvement books, a lot of good self-help books. They put you on game to a lot of good shit as far as like the training aspect of all of it. But the business model itself is very flawed and weird. And I wouldn't really recommend it to most people. I feel like there's better ways to learn sales skills. There's better ways to learn self-improvement. Once the restaurant went under, our house got foreclosed on and we had to move into a new house. And in that new house, I was like, all right, you know, I knew how to use Adobe Illustrator. I knew how to like design shit and kind of make graphics and shit like that. So I basically was like, I've always wanted to start like an apparel company. And my homie Hank wanted to do one as well. He worked at like a large format printing shop. And so he had access to like screen printing and shit like that. And so I made some designs and then I would send him over the designs and then he would like take those designs and screen print them onto shirts. We would get samples and shit that he would make. And, you know, a lot of it just ended up being like a knockoff Diamond. Basically, you know, it was just like Diamond logo shit, Diamond brand shit. We're going to call it Diamond, I think. It's just, we were broke. We didn't have any capital. We didn't know exactly what we were doing. We printed a couple of shirts and it was cool and I was super excited about it, but we didn't pursue it. You know, it costs a lot of money to print at the scale that we wanted to print it at. We didn't really understand we wanted to get quality shirts. So we needed to try a bunch of samples, and when you want to get quality shirts, you got to pay money per shirt, and you got to pay more money per design if you want to do multiple colors. And it was just, it's a huge undertaking, plus the promotion, plus the marketing, plus sales, plus all that kind of shit. It's just like we were vastly underqualified. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing, so gave that one up. So then I finally moved from Canyon City, and I was living in Denver, and I was working a shitty sales job, and then that sales job went south, and I moved in with my homie, and I was living on the couch, and basically I was just selling weed, and I wouldn't consider that a business per se, but you kind of are learning the skills of getting something for a certain amount and then selling it for a certain amount, and the delta in between that, what you get it for and what you sell it for, is your profit margin. That taught me real basic sales arbitrage kind of shit. And so I'm working shitty jobs. I'm working Applebee's. I'm working, Country Buffet. I'm working at all these line cooking jobs. And then I'm working at this landscaping company. And I'm living in this college cul-de-sac where it's just a bunch of college age kids, same age as myself, and they're early 20s. And one of my homies had an apparel company. And I was like, yo, this is my chance. I've always wanted to be a part of an apparel company. I've always wanted to make designs. Always wanted to design my own apparel. This is dope. And they were kind of gaining some steam. They were actually selling some merch. They were actually doing it out here. So I saw an opportunity to kind of get involved in their company and kind of I was sending them designs. They weren't really feeling them. They weren't really feeling the stuff that I was doing. It was, in hindsight, too busy, but I actually ended up sending them some dope shit, but it never got printed. And so I kind of got into more of a marketing role where we would throw these parties, right? And I would have these ideas to throw these parties, and I wanted to attach a rapper to the company so that we could use that rapper to promote the brand, wear the merch, rock the merch on Facebook, and promote the brand basically as this endorsed rapper. And then so it was I wanted to do a mixtape where it was the brand sponsors the mixtape, finds the beats, we promote it, we do the cover art, we do all this shit, promote it. And then so we did a mixtape, and it was dope, and we threw some dope ass parties. We did a party in the woods one time in Canyon City. Mad people showed up. We sold a bunch of merch out the back of a van. We had a concert in a truck bed. It was very successful, and it worked really well. And so I would do shit like that. So then we're all right, let's put space in between this apparel company, and we want to make a label. And that label was called IGM. I just remember thinking I didn't like the name. I remember thinking I don't want to call it this. I felt I didn't have very much control. I was getting outvoted on shit, but I was all right, whatever, we'll do this. I was kind of more in a manager position with this. So I would help manage the artist and try to get him booked on gigs, if I remember correctly, and promote him. And I don't really even remember what the fuck I was doing. But I remember just not liking it after a while. And that all kind of went south because we all had some misunderstandings on what everybody's roles were and shit. And so we just disbanded. And so that went under. So that was a failure. So then I was I'm going to start making beats. I want to, I've always made music. I'm a drummer. So fuck it. I'm going to start making beats. So I downloaded a cracked version of FL Studio and started making beats on my laptop. And they were trash. Of course, your first beats are always going to be trash. I started making beats. I started sending them out, and then eventually people started to fuck with them. My brother became a rapper. I started linking up with rappers. I was you know what? That whole label thing kind of didn't go the way I wanted to, but I've always wanted to own a record label. I've always wanted to have a record label. I thought it was super cool to be an independent label. So I started a company. I started my own company. It's called Lion League Music. And I basically provided my brother, the homies, with beats, and then I would distribute it however I distribute it. At that time, a lot of it was just SoundCloud. We did all the cover art. We shot the videos. We did the photos. We did all the promotion. We did all that shit. And during that time, I meet my now wife. My dad links up with this guy, and this guy is hey, I want to start a brewery. And my dad wanted to start another brewery because the other one went under, and he was like, hey, I know I have family members that could help us with this shit because they started successful breweries and I've done one before, like, let's do it together. They didn't really vet each other because end of the day, they just weren't meshing. They didn't like each other. It went badly, but they brought me in on it because my dad wanted to kind of be off the books, so to speak. And he brought me into this company so I could like be a McClellan that owns it through my dad. It was weird. What ended up happening was I ended up being a large contributor to this and actually being a real owner. And so I was the chef there. I was the general manager for a while, and I was like the managing partner, quote unquote. And so after helping create that business, now the business is going. It's a sandwich shop and a brewery, and it's going, and it's we've got a great product. The beer's really good, the food's really good, but the leadership is fucking terrible. There was no leadership. There was no real goal that we kind of like set out to get after. There was no one really leading, and there was too much ego to allow one person or the other to kind of take the reins and move ahead and move forward. And so basically that ended up going under. There are several reasons why I went under, but the biggest reason that I tell everybody, and it's not because of fucking COVID, and it's not because of inflation and bullshit like that. It's because it was a shitty partnership. They didn't get along. They couldn't get on the same page. They didn't vet each other, and it just went south. Shitty partnership. Easy to diagnose. So there's another failed business. So I don't know what count we're at now, 5, 6. So I'm still doing the label. My brother had to do some time, so he was away, and I'm still making music, and I'm still like really, really into making music. I'm producing, and before Josh went to prison, we had got a camera. We had invested in some camera gear, and we started like shooting our own videos and shooting our own photos. And so basically, like, I would shoot all of our music videos, and then anybody who was on the team, I would shoot all their shit for them for free. I would do their videos, I would do the photos, and we would promote it, and we had our own YouTube channel, currently do. And we just were trying to be independent. We were trying to build something to where we could live off of this. I made a shitload of merch. We actually ended up selling some merch and making some money, and kind of getting into a place where like I was running ads, and I was actually operating it like a legitimate business. I was retargeting the ads to people that looked interested. We were putting some money behind the promotion of the videos. Like, we were actually kind of starting to operate like a real business. But during that time, I realized like I'm like finding this passion for film production and video production. And the more I shoot and the more videos I do and the more shit that I do with film and video production, I'm just like falling in love with it. And so after a period of time, I just kind of stopped like making beats as much and stopped making music, and like really started to lean into this film production thing. Lion League is starting to kind of fizzle out at that point, and it's kind of like starting to kind of be on the back burner while I start to run my production company. And you're doing free shit, you're doing free shit for a while, and then somebody hits you up and they're like, how much? And you're like, fuck, I've never been paid for this before. And you just throw a number out, and they're like, cool, let's shoot. And then you get another one, and then you get another one, and that person tells that person, and then people start talking about you shooting their stuff, and then now you're shooting more stuff. And so now I'm actually making money. Like, this is like an actual thing that is making me money. Like the label, there was some money coming in, but there was like a lot more of an investment into it to even break even. None of the other businesses up until this point for me actually made me money. Like, I was getting a salary from our brewery, from our sandwich shop, and that was like my personal distributions or whatever. But I was just like working there. Sometimes I was shooting the commercials for there. I was like doing stuff just from a manager perspective. And then once this like film business and this production business started to pick up, then I completely backed away. And like right when I like kind of backed away and like got out of that is kind of when like I feel like shit just started to go south. My dad and this other business partner were just like not jiving, shit wasn't working. And all of those factors involved just kind of like really showed me that you kind of got to be all in with some shit. Like, you really got to be devoted and determined to make some shit happen. If you're half in and you're half out, you're kind of putting in this half-ass effort, and it's not going to actually get you anywhere. So I was actually putting in full effort into video production and doing that. Once I was able to like actually start making more money, then I started to reach out to people that were like had more skills than me, and then like I had mentors, and I was on bigger sets, and I was doing bigger things, and I was producing on a movie, and I was a production manager on another movie, and then I did this big music, and all of a sudden I'm like fully in it. I'm like fully in video production, fully in film production. Like, this is what I'm trying to do. And so I created my production company, and putting together that production company for me was like, it kind of clicked. That was the shit that I'm finally being creative and making a full-time living doing this shit. After a while, I started kind of building a business, having regular clients, working regularly, making a full-time living off of this shit. And then, and I'm doing this like during COVID. I'm like making my biggest moves during COVID. I was on my first real set as a director in like the heart of COVID. And then, basically I kind of saw someone for who they were. They were kind of, what's the best way to put this? Fucking narcissist, sociopath. And I found out who this person was, and I didn't fuck with that. And so I severed ties with this person. But this person was feeding me a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie, like this person was like getting me work. And so in 2022, I'm just like, fuck, dude, like it's very sporadic. Like I'll get like a music video here, or like a product shoot over here, or a commercial over here, or something. It's just like very sporadic, not very consistent. And then basically I was struggling, bro. I was like driving Uber Eats in between shooting very irregular gigs. And then my homie approached me and was like, yo, we need a shooter, we need a video guy. So they're feeding me work. And I'm like really kind of like establishing this company. Meanwhile, I'm doing a lot of side gigs. I'm doing a lot of other stuff. But basically this is now the first time that I've actually like lived full time, paying all my bills, putting some money aside, like doing it off of this film shit. The point of this video is going to be like what failure taught me, and like what failure can teach you, and how important failure is, because all of that shit that I did prior was all failures to me. All of that shit I failed at, whether my heart wasn't in it, whether I gave it up, whether, it was a bad partnership or whatever the case may be. Those are all failures. The thread that moves all the way through all of those failures, and like the number one thing that I hope that anybody gets out of this is just like, it's always harder than you think. It's always going to be fucking harder than you originally anticipate. You're going to go in there and you don't even know what you don't know. And you've heard about this shit. Like, you've heard about the valley of despair. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. So you get into it and you're super excited. And you're like, oh, this is going to be sick. And then you find out that it's like way more than you anticipated. And you start to learn all the things you're deficient in. If I just had a better grasp on advertising, and if my heart was in it a little bit more, then it could have been a viable business. If your heart isn't truly into this shit, there's really no point of even like trying to go waste your time doing it. And since it's always going to be harder than you think, then when you realize how much fucking work it's about to be, if you're not passionate about it, and if your heart's not fucking in it, then you're not going to have the energy and the fucking gusto and the mental bandwidth to go and take it to the level that you need to take it to. It's always going to be harder than you think. I'm not saying this shit to like discourage you. I'm saying like, if you're trying some stuff out and you're like still figuring it out, and you're still figuring out what you want to do and like how you want to do it, and that's fine. That's great. Like, keep trying stuff, keep tasting, keep figuring it out. You know what I'm saying? But like, once you find that shit, like you kind of have to take it to another level, as far as like that fire that burns within, that fucking passion, that shit that you really love about it, or else it's not going to go anywhere. The record label, the music, that was like the closest thing that I had the most passion for, besides this film production shit. I love music. I still love music. I still think it would be cool to own a label. But, the path to getting there, along the path of like pursuing a different passion, I found a passion that I loved even more. And that's just how shit happens sometimes. Like, when you're trying shit out, when you're learning new things, when you're tasting new things, something that you're doing can just kind of be a catalyst into some other shit. It can be something that like leads you down a road, but then leads you down another road that you actually find what your passion is. So that's why it's important to like put in some effort into like trying new things out and doing new things and doing different things. If I could leave you with something really strong and tangible, it's like when you get into something, fully expect that it's going to be extremely fucking difficult, but extremely rewarding when you actually start hitting major milestones, when you actually start getting shit done, when you actually start seeing that fucking progress. If your heart isn't in it, what are we doing here? You know, time is precious. Time is valuable. Don't waste it doing some shit that your heart isn't into it, that you're not passionate about. You realize that you sunk a lot of time into something and you're not feeling it. A lot of people are like, well, I've spent so much time doing it, so I have to keep doing it because I've spent so much time and energy and money and effort, and I've put all this into something that I don't really even like that much. I'm not really that good at, I don't really have a passion for. It's okay. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. And that applies to so many other things. That applies to relationships, that applies to fucking your job, that applies to college, that applies to so many different things. It's like, I've sunk so much money into this, and you're just like, fucking, I don't even like it that much. Don't get caught up in that. People get fucked up by that all the time. Move on. It's fine. You're going to thank yourself later. Appreciate you listening to this fucking rant, whatever the fuck this is, solo dolo podcast. I just was like, fuck it, man. I'm just going to riff. I'm going to riff one out. I'm going to talk about failure and how important it is and how much, it helps. The importance of failure and the importance of the lessons that you learn from those failures. It's some shit that I'll never take back, like all of the failed businesses up until now, whether it's like the very first business I did when I was 16, like learning marketing, learning promotion, learning how to do that guerrilla marketing, like get in the streets, promote your business, reach out to people. That's another thing. It's like these bands that I would hit up were like my heroes. They were people that I wanted to be, and I wanted to be a touring band. And so it helped me to kind of like push through that anxiety of like hitting people up that you feel are above your status, quote unquote. It helped me kind of get rid of those nerves. It helped me to like not fear being rejected. And then like the MLM, which is like weird and culty and shit, that taught me really great sales skills. That taught me how to kind of further my confidence when it comes to selling. And like I said, they also put you onto great books and self-improvement. And that kind of like really catalyzed my self-improvement journey. And my parents' failed business, like learned that when you bring family into an endeavor, when you bring friends into an endeavor and they put money into the business, you could be ruining friendships, you could be ruining relationships with your family. And even though, and to this day I believe this, even though these people put their money in and took a gamble, and it's their fucking responsibility, they need to take that accountability for the fact that they took a gamble and they put money into a business that that has a high probability of failing. Restaurants, I don't know if I would ever tell anybody to own a restaurant, because most people aren't passionate. Back to the passion thing. Most people aren't passionate about actually the business of running a restaurant. Most of the time it's like, I love food, I'm a chef, I am a good manager. They don't have the passion, or they don't have like the skills of like the business of running a restaurant. And so our food was good, the beer was good, but again, it was just partnerships, it was relationships, it was the things from the top down that we couldn't get a handle on. And then like the t-shirt business, it was like, well, it's going to be way more work than I thought it's going to be. And it's like, do I love the apparel business enough to really dive into this shit? The answer was no. And then this other label that we start after working in this apparel company and like finding out that I have these marketing skills. So it's like throughout each of these businesses that I did, like I'm figuring out what my skills are and like what I'm getting good at and what I can apply to other shit. And these failures just ended up revealing to me what my skills are, where I'm deficient, and ultimately kind of bringing me to what I needed to thrive in, like what my gift is. And I'm just happy that it was something creative. I've always I've been an artist my whole life. So if you don't love it, if you're not on fire about it, if you're not super passionate about it, just try something else, move on to something else. Because I feel like a lot of us really know deep down like what we love, what we really want to do. It's not, don't start with the whole, I need to make a fuckload of money doing this. It should start from a place of like love. So thanks for listening to me riff, all motherfucking, however many of you. I think if you pull anything from this, like failure's good. Failure is okay. Don't even fucking think for 1 second about anybody else's judgment about your failures. Embrace it. Like really lean into those feelings of discomfort and understand where that comes from. When you lean into that, you'll find where the lesson is and what that teaching is going to come from. I appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Watch fucking this video or watch that video and subscribe and all that shit and like buttons and fucking comments and fucking share it with somebody and all that shit if you liked it. If you didn't like it, don't do any of that. If you didn't like it, fucking just, I don't know, like put a middle finger emoji in the comment section or something. But if you did like it, fucking subscribe or some shit or send it to somebody. Help your boy out. As you can see, I'm out here just trying, dude. So peace.